without any further ado, Andrey.
Thank you, Per, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming here. I know it's late. It's challenging for me because I'm coming from Israel, so it's 4 a.m., 4:30 a.m. in Israel, and I'm a bit jet lagged. Some of you as well, but we are going to make it through. So we are in Vegas, and I would like to start with a story that is relevant to what's going on here. It is this attack on SANS organization. Who here have heard about this? Okay, quite a few people. So in general, SANS, they own a network, they own casinos around the world. They have two right here, the Venetian and the Palacio. They have in Macau and Singapore and other places. They're owned by Sheldon Adelson, who in December 13 had some comments about the Iranian nuclear program. The Iranians didn't like it for some reason, so they decided to get back. They decided to attack the infrastructure. They couldn't reach directly the Las Vegas network, so they tried to find some office. They found another branch in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, not the one in Palestine. And so basically what they did was they tried to brute force the VPN. They tried once, 2 weeks later they tried again. They couldn't break in, so they found 2 weeks later a test web server. They found the vulnerability there and they went in. Once inside the network, they were able to detect a credential used by a systems administrator who connected from the main network here in Vegas, basically left his credentials behind. We're going to touch on that later, on a machine in that branch, and they were able to hijack this credential and get back into the main network. And from there, it's like any other malware worm, just compiled it inside the network. Using those credentials, they operated inside, collected information, destroyed information, and as a coup de grace, they published sensitive information on SANS' own website, like just to in your face, as they say. And basically what they did, they destroyed the entire network IT infrastructure of the casinos over here, including one interesting aspect for those of you who have seen the Ocean 11 movies, right? They had this whale program, right? The high rollers program. So all data was destroyed regarding this program. Basically for a few weeks the casino couldn't identify who the high rollers are, which is very problematic. Now all this happened due to a single password, or basically a single hash, right? Password being compromised. And here we are going to see what. No, sorry. Should we turn it on somehow?
There's a controller on the.
Let's try this again.
Eugene.
Once again.
Good morning, gentlemen. Please be seated. I see we're still dressing in the dark, Eugene.
Once again, don't call me Eugene. Our recent unknown intruder penetrated using a super user account, giving him access to our whole system.
Precisely what you're paid to prevent.
Someone didn't bother reading my carefully prepared memo on commonly used passwords. Now then, as I so meticulously pointed out, the four most used passwords are love, sex, secret, and God. So, would Your Holiness care to change her password?
Who recognize the movie? Right, I expect everybody here to recognize the movie. It's a 1995 movie called Hackers. One of the first ones is Angelina Jolie. Another reason to see it, besides being professional relevance. But basically, it's 20 years ago, and it discusses the same problem that we have today. Okay? Of several accounts with high privileges that, if compromised, enable an attacker to do whatever they want in the network. So, before we continue, I'm going to try something new that I haven't done before. We're going to try polling this installation. So please go to this website, phone.si. Use this poll ID. Come on, take out your phones. Everybody's connected nowadays. Let's try to run the first poll just to see that this thing works. Yeah, no malwares there. At least nothing. Nothing that I wrote.
So you play.
Let's go. Give it 5 minutes.
Okay. We have a first answer, second one, third. Come on. Really? Ten, 9, 8, 7. Somebody chose black hat. I'm really surprised. 3, 2, 1. Okay. Yeah! Sneakers won. Excellent. Okay, so we know this tool works. And we know that Sneakers is the best hacked movie. We did it. Okay, let's continue. So, the privilege escalation cycle, and this is what we are going to discuss here. Basically, it works this way. The attackers get in, they compromise some device which has some credentials, they use those credentials, they retrieve those credentials, they use them to operate inside the network. Usually it is to gain access to another location with higher privileged credentials. They steal those, and the cycle repeats itself, spiraling, until the attackers get sufficient credentials that will enable them to get to their goal inside the network. It's important to know that the credentials that we are talking about here can be both user credentials, but they can also be application credentials, right? Services, application server, every application, every VM, virtual machine, every hypervisor has a built-in account with the highest privileges for it, and there are many network-level accounts, including personal administrative accounts, and our research show that there are usually 3 to 4 times as many privileged accounts in an organizational network as there are user accounts. Okay? So, and I'm talking here to people who understand this concept, right? Because every hypervisor, as I said, has those accounts. Sometimes people, when I present this, find this surprising because they're saying, but we don't have that many administrators. Okay, but you have much more devices. And so when we discuss what the attackers are looking for, they are basically looking for any account that will grant them access, and they don't care about Andrey's account, right? If Andrey's account is the right account, excellent. If it's some other account, whatever. I don't try to specifically impersonate Andrey unless I want to frame him for days. Okay? Almost goes back to the hacker movement. We have, actually it's way before, right? We have a machine on which all domain users are defined as power users. Okay, so basically any domain account is a privileged account of that machine, which is also one configuration. And we even have an application account whose password, I'm sorry for you guys behind, is written in the account description. Yeah, so, you know, if you ever need the password, it's right there in the account description. Actually, the interesting secure stuff here is for the security control. See that? Okay, so one of the things that we can do with DNA is detect the presence of credentials on one machine that would enable compromise of another machine on which that account has high privilege. Okay? So what we ask ourselves in this research that I'm about to present is how many machines endanger the entire network. Okay? And we are in Vegas, so basically the question is, how lucky must an attacker get with their initial compromise in order to be able to compromise from that machine the entire network? And the way we do it is we take a machine, we see to which machines an attacker would be able to access by compromising the credentials on this machine, and then we go forward and we say, okay, there are more credentials here, what additional machines can be compromised from there, and we count all those machines. Okay. So this machine is able to compromise if this is the entire network. This machine can compromise 6 more machines. Okay. The metric that we define is a highly threatening machine. The highly threatening machine is a machine that would enable the compromise of over 80% of the network. It doesn't necessarily have to be all the network. So what are, if those 5 machines are the entire network, who are the highly threatening machines here? Okay, somebody? 4 a.m. This one is clearly highly threatening, right? But we also have this one, which is also highly threatening. Right, because it's threatening this one and this one is highly threatening. So we are in Vegas, and I would like to start. This is the basic of what we are doing. And then we split the networks. Okay? We try to assign a score to the entire network. We are asking how many of the machines in the network are highly threatening. So if there are very few highly threatening machines around the world, we're saying, okay, it's a very safe network. If there are a medium number of highly threatening, medium. If there are over 50% of machines in the network are highly threatening, this network is at a very high threat level, right? The attacker can land basically anywhere, okay? Flip a coin over 50% chance, the Iranians didn't, and he will land on a machine for which he will be able to compromise the entire network. So we are going to the next poll. Some of you have networks. So let's try this question. What is the level of exposure of your networks? Okay, is it high risk, medium risk, low risk? Okay, the first answer was an honest one. Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so we have the majority of the people think that their networks are low risk, and then we have split last second, the high network. Oh, okay, it will keep rising. It won't affect the presentation anymore, so you had it. So the results, those are the results. Okay, basically what we see is, and those are the results of a research I forgot to mention of over 60 networks that we have scanned in real world. So only 70% of the networks are of low risk. And the majority of the networks are either medium or high risk, with a very significant amount of networks in the high risk category. So basically in those networks, the attacker can land anywhere, right? Or not anywhere, but a very high chance that the machine on which the attacker lands will be able to compromise the entire network. Why is that? Basically due to service accounts that exist on those machines, or due to user accounts. User accounts meaning administrators connected to this machine left their credentials behind them, and now the attacker can hijack them and move. Okay? So we can also try to evaluate the effectiveness of mitigation. But before we touch on that, just if we compare servers versus workstations, as expected, I won't go too much into details here, but the purple line is the percentage of the servers that are highly threatening. And as expected, on servers, there is a higher chance of finding privileged credentials, right? Either applications or administrators. So if we try to assign mitigations, we can try to mitigate the threat from user accounts. For example, if we are using local accounts to connect to devices, we don't leave behind hashes that could be used by an attacker to compromise other devices, right? If we are using one-time passwords to connect to devices, again, we won't leave behind hashes that the attacker can abuse. So we see that the situation improves a bit. We can try to mitigate the threat coming from the service accounts, okay? For example, if we remove the locally stored credentials, if we have some system that provides passwords on demand to applications and services, instead of them being locally stored next to the application, which is the usual case, then the attacker won't be able to find them. Again, we can use local accounts where possible. And the improvement here is much more significant. So there is a lot of thread that is coming from services. And if we employ all our tools, switch to local accounts, and we zone properly, meaning a privileged account is only privileged to a subset of the servers instead of the entire network, then we can improve the situation significantly. There are other best practices that can be employed, and they are even more interesting, I would say. So two-factor authentication, right? It's a known tool, and there's a lot of discussion about how it should properly be employed, but it's a fairly easy case to make that a two-factor authentication should first of all be employed for the privileged users in the network. Okay? Whoever is the administrator, especially those administrators who have access to our domain controllers, they should deploy two-factor authentication. The second concept is tiering, and there are people from Microsoft and there are other people who are familiar with that. But basically what we are saying is that not all devices on our network are same. So we would like to use a different administrative account for every sort of device, meaning there would be an administrative account for the workstations, for the servers, and a separate administrative account for the domain controllers. And in this situation, an attacker who would be able to compromise one of those devices would be only able to move laterally within the tier, and if we are also zoning it, then only within that zone, and not be able to escalate the privileges to the domain controller. But a more secure approach would be to avoid using passwords from workstations at all. Okay? If we are able to deploy a solution where the user will connect to some sort of a jump server with their personal credentials, which are not privileged, and then use, and this jump server will establish the privileged session for them, then there will be no privileged credential on the user endpoint. Okay. Now, we know that human beings are very bad, we've been discussing this throughout this conference, at setting passwords. Human beings set weak passwords. Human beings they reuse the same passwords over many devices. They will assign passwords and not change them for a long time. Sometimes never change them at all. They will use global passwords that are applicable to many devices. Okay? And this is, okay, they're all a bit jet lagged, but this is just wrong. Okay? For those who have not yet seen this episode, probably one of the...
We're talking about cybersecurity today and how safe people's passwords are. What is one of your online passwords currently?
It is my dog's name and the year I graduated from high school.
Oh, what kind of dog do you have?
I have a Chihuahua Papillon.
And what's its name?
Jameson.
Jameson. And where did you go to school?
I went to school back in Greensburg, Pennsylvania.
What school?
Hempfield Area Senior High School.
Oh, when did you graduate?
In 2009.
Oh, great.
It's like my cat's name and then just like a random number.
Okay. Has you had this cat for a while?
Yeah, she's my childhood pet.
Aw. And what's her name?
Her name is Jolie.
Jolie. So like a password of yours would be Jolie and then a number.
Yeah.
Like number 1?
Like my birthday.
Oh, when is your birthday?
June 12th.
Oh, nice. What year were you born?
95.
Oh, great. So Jolie, 6, 12, 95.
Yes.
Got it.
Gemma. 1, 2, 3. Spell G-E-M-M-A.
Well, most of them are Italian.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah,
That's
so
cool.
like
What's a good Italian password?
my grandma's name,
What's your grandma's name?
Maria.
Maria. So Maria is your password?
Oh yeah, now you know my password. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I assume your administrators won't give out passwords to somebody coming up with a mic on the street, but human beings are just bad, very bad at setting passwords. And we would like to prevent human beings from ever setting or touching the privileged password, which is the most sensitive. And this is where I would say the most significant improvement that can be made in modern enterprises can be made. And it is to set a system, an automated system, that will manage all the privileged passwords by itself, and then change the passwords according to a policy, and enable access according to an established workflow to use those accounts when needed. This way, the human beings will only be able to manage their own personal password, which is not privileged by itself. So I will end here, and I will open up to questions if you have any. But basically, we went through an attack scenario. We described the exposure of networks to such attacks, and provided some best practices. So, questions on any of those? Yeah.
Considering that the system where there is privileged account management, centralized privileged account management is more secure because that the machines that allow you to access essentially every other system is just as one single machine. So according to your metric, right, considering the overall number of machines, it's a very small percentage that actually.
Right.
But it is still a single single failure point.
Right. So we have. So when you use the term single point of failure, we're basically describing two aspects. One is the availability of this system, and there are of course disaster recovery, high availability solutions, and others. But we are also discussing the security of the solution. So you have one point of failure, and if it is compromised, then what happens to the entire network? And basically here we have a conceptual issue, right? Whether it is easier to protect hundreds of endpoints, each of them using an administrative account, or to have a one highly secure solution, okay, on which we can employ all our security understanding and our detection mechanisms to avoid such compromise. So we believe that this approach is much better, and it is possible. Okay, we know that it's possible. But I understand your point. Okay, it's a decision that an organization needs to make, and it does sound like putting all your eggs in one basket, but this basket is highly protected. I don't know. I'm not sure how this metaphor should be developed. If anyone has a good metaphor on this, on the basket. Yeah. Last one.
Systems that have password authentication disabled and use authentication stuff.
Sure. So either public key or SSH keys, it is also possible to use this or similar system, and it is crucial to manage. For example, with SSH keys or public keys on Symmetra, you have keys that are left behind after accounts are disabled. You have keys that are never changed, okay? Which are also, if I just recently there was a Cisco store, right, with the keys that people, an SSH key that just wasn't changed. So employing the same approach to SSH keys and PKI or any other public key solution is also wise, okay? And it's become even easier. You can now employ a different mode of authentication, including two-factor authentication, to legacy systems that didn't support them before. Because you are separating the personal authentication from the privileged authentication, you can now employ two-factor authentication on the legacy mainframes that wouldn't support it otherwise. So there are many combinations that become possible.
Okay, yeah. Well, would you protect that machine? Would it in a different zone? Would you like set up auditing and log?
Yeah, so many approaches here, but first of all, take it out of the domain entirely. Okay, only have local admin access to this machine. We secure, specifically in our solution, I'm promoting the concept here, I'm not talking, but we employ a proprietary secure protocol to communicate with it, so any other communication to it is prevented. Local security controls, including strong encryption on the storage itself, and there are several other controls. You can discuss it with me later.
Yeah, we're going to stop. Time is out, but thank you, Andrey, for your
Thank you. I'll give you